Hey, welcome to GSM Durango. I'm so excited that you were here. We are in week 3 of our series called Rad. We are looking at how Jesus taught and he modeled a radical love, a different way of living, something that was countercultural and revolutionary. And we're specifically looking at the book of James and what James teaches us from Jesus' life. So James was a brother of Jesus, so he knew intently, he knew very well what it was that Jesus wanted to communicate while he was here on earth because he lived with the guy. So today we're going to look at our words and how our words can affect other people, whether it be for a good thing or a bad thing. Now look, we've all been in different types of situations where we're in like a war of words, where we're throwing insults at each other, or we're trying to make the other person angry or upset, and maybe we've been on the receiving end where somebody else is trying to make us angry or upset. But here's what I want us to think about. What I want us to think about is how we have all used our words like weapons, and what that means, and how we can change how we use our words. Look, it's probably not very difficult for you to think of a time when somebody else's words have been hurtful to you. Maybe it was from a family member or even a friend or a bully. It was somebody on the internet, maybe somebody sending you a message on Snapchat. Whatever it is, there are probably, I would be willing to bet that every single one of us could think of at least a time or two when somebody else's words have been hurtful to us. Look, these words, they have a lot of power. And so what you do with somebody else's words, it matters. And when they hurt you deeply, it matters of what we do in response. Sometimes we want to snap right back and put words back at them that are intended to hurt them or intended to cause harm. Now, you might be able to remember when somebody else has harmed you with their words, but can you remember the times when you have been intentionally hurtful with your words towards somebody else? Look, in the book of James, we see straightforward teaching from the book of James, and it was coming from the life of Jesus. And it is simple and easy to understand. Look, and what Jesus has to say and what James has to say about loving others is pretty radical, but at the same time, it has the ability and the opportunity to change the world. So what I want us to do is look at James chapter 3, starting there in verse 1. And the words will be on the screen if you don't have your Bible. So James chapter 3, starting in verse 1. Not many should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that we will receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is mature, able also to control the whole body. Now if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we direct their whole bodies. And consider ships. Though very large and driven by fierce winds, they are guided by a very, very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. Verse 5. So too, though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts great things. Consider how small a fire sets ablaze a large forest. And the tongue is a fire. The tongue, a world of unrighteousness, is placed among ourselves, and it can stain the whole body. Sets the course of life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Verse 7, every kind of animal, bird, reptile, and fish is tamed and has been tamed by humankind. But no one can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With the tongue we can bless our Lord and Father, and with it we can curse people who were made in God's likeness. Blessing and cursing come out from the same mouth. My brothers and sisters, these things should not be this way. Does a spring pour out sweet and bitter water from the same opening? Can a fig tree produce olives? My brothers and sisters, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a saltwater spring yield fresh water. What I want us to see in here is the power that our tongue and the words that come from our mouth have. That it is a small thing within our body, but it can cause great harm, but it can also cause great encouragement to those around us. In this passage in the book of James chapter 3, we see 3 separate object lessons. Number 1, we see the bit. The bit in the horse's mouth. Now, some of you like to ride horses and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a small piece of metal that is put into the mouth of the horse, and it guides the horse in the direction that the human on the horse wants it to go. It is allowing the horse to stay on the right track. The second one we saw was the rudder of a large ship. Look, James is writing about this, and you might be familiar with airplanes or boats or whatever, but the thing is that this small rudder on the back of the boat, underneath the boat, has the power to change the course of where this boat is going. But it is such a small thing, and it can move a massive ship. The third thing he mentioned was the spark of a fire. Look, we use small controlled sparks to light candles, campfires, fireplaces, stoves. Like in my house, we have candles everywhere because my wife loves candles. But this small little lighter can light that candle and make the house smell awesome. But on the flip side of those small little sparks, they can cause a significant amount of damage. And the words that we say might seem small, it might seem insignificant, but they have the potential to make a huge impact. And when the words that we say are harmful, they can cause significant harm as well. Look, you can see that James in this passage, that he is lamenting in this passage about how difficult it is for us to control our own tongues. Like he's probably right there along with us, that he's saying how hard it is for all of us to control our tongues. Look, he's frustrated and fed up with himself and with those around him. But here's the thing is, when we curse God or when we curse those around us, and then we try to worship God in the same day, in the same breath, like it doesn't make sense. It makes us look like hypocrites. It makes us hypocrites. It doesn't make us just look like it, but we are hypocrites when we curse others that are made in God's image, and then we try to worship God with the same breath and the same tongue. And just as James is trying to retell some of the stories and some of the teachings that Jesus had himself, we can look back at Mark chapter 7 as something that Jesus was doing, as something that Jesus was saying, because Jesus was continually being asked and tested by religious leaders. And we call them throughout the Bible and throughout sermons or whatever, we call them Pharisees. But a lot of times that's not a good thing, because really they're just being hypocrites. And so in this passage that we're about to look at, these religious leaders are questioning Jesus about the way that the disciples, the followers of Jesus, are eating. They're looking at this little small scale thing and trying to trap Jesus with some of these questions. And so these Pharisees are asking Jesus a question about this. And here is Jesus' response in Mark 7, starting there in verse 6. Isaiah prophesied correctly about you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They worship me in vain, teaching as doctrines human commands. Verse 8, abandoning the command of God, you hold on to human tradition. Look, Jesus' words here, they might sound harsh. Look, he's not trying to be cruel, but what he is doing is he's calling them out, and he's calling them to something different. He's calling them to life change, because they continually put people down with their words and try to honor a tradition that was never really rooted in the gospel. Look, God isn't wanting our hypocritical words. He's saying in here that no matter how many words we use to pray or to sing, God is not impressed with the holy things we say when we are also using our words to hurt others. And the third thing that he's pointing out here is that our words reflect our hearts. He goes on in this passage to talk about that what comes out of our mouth, what comes out of us, is a reflection of what is within. So whenever he's reminding us to look at what's inside of our hearts, it's because our heart determines what comes out of our mouth. And if we are filled with greed, pride, jealousy, then it's not just our words that we need to address. It is our hearts. Look, Jesus and James, what they want us to do is to think about not just what comes out of our mouth and the words that come out of our mouth, but what they want us to do is they want us to look at our own hearts and determine, are we filling ourselves with the love of Jesus? Are we filling ourselves with love for others? Or are we filling ourselves with things that defile us and cause us to think evil things and to promote hurtful and harmful things? Is what's inside of our heart what is causing hurt among those around us? Look, words are kind of like tattoos. Once you get the tattoo, you can't take it away. It is on you forever. Now, you might try to get it taken off later on in life with some type of new technology, or maybe it's just going to fade over time. But the truth is that tattoo is going to forever be etched onto your skin. Look, you can try to apologize for things that you have said before, but the wounds that are left by the words that you use simply just won't disappear. Look, your words of love, hope, and encouragement, they won't disappear either. They can have a mark, they can leave a mark that lasts forever. So when we think about our words and we think of what's coming out of our heart, let's remember words of love and words of encouragement rather than words that cause harm and words that can hurt people. So this week, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to strive to love God and to love others with your words, because radical people watch their words.